I really just tried to pretend it wasn't even happening. I didn't want to take time out and do any of this. So I kind of like when you tell your kid to hold your nose and just take the medicine. That's what I did. So if there are emotions here about it, I'm not aware of them. I think that anybody that has to stop and have a surgery and all the things that were going on with the nerves is just going to be probably a little pissed off, you know. I am Honey Hilliard in Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, January 18th, actually on my birthday, 2020. I'm a wife and a mom. I'm an oil painter. I used to paint for the state of Florida, and I jumped ship. I'm a freelance artist. I do fine art and bespoke wedding suite design and illustration and landscapes. It had apparently been there 15 years, and I had not had a mammogram in that long. I guess the last one that I had was 15 years ago. I really never went to doctors very often. I was the opposite of a hypochondriac. If I had a problem, I dealt with it with diet, nutrition, exercise, and not that I'm really a fitness guru, but I've always been pretty good at trying to be active and do the yoga or the kickboxing and run since I was like young. I woke up as if I was instructed somehow to put my hand on my right breast, and there was a lump. Woke up in the middle of the night, and I knew to do that. I was half asleep and felt this lump. My first thought was, well, I better go treat this seriously, because I knew in the middle of the night, half asleep, I knew it was serious for some reason. So I did go as soon as I could and make all the appointments. But when they called back and said, yes, according to our, what do they do? The biopsy, it's cancer. I was shocked and just mostly thought, I don't have time for this. Okay, well, go ahead and just take the little thing out. I'm sure, let's just have go ahead and get rid of it. And they said, well, it might be serious. We need to do another biopsy. It's serious enough that we need to either start radiation and do another biopsy right now, or you could have a bilateral mastectomy. I said, let's go ahead and take it all out. I don't want to do radiation. I don't have time for it. I want to get back to the art. I don't even want to talk about it. Then I didn't. I felt like it would be more of a label. I didn't want to be the person with cancer. I wanted to be the person making art and designs. And they told me, when you wake up from the surgery, you may or may not have nipples. That's the part I was like, might be TMI, but I do. I did get to keep them. A lot of people don't. And that made the reconstruction maybe a little easier or more natural. We achieved a more natural effect than it could have been. So everything was removed, including some lymph nodes. I guess that's standard practice. And so they said, we'll test them and let you know what we found. And so they found 2 tumors, and the lymph nodes were clear and the margins were clear. And I thought, yay, done. We're done with this. And then I went to see the oncologist, and I didn't know why I was going to see an oncologist. They removed everything, and the margins were clear, but I did. And he said, "We'll go ahead and start you on chemo." And I said, "No, we're not. I'm not going to do that." I know some people need to. I had a very strong feeling that I didn't need to, and I have a little survivor guilt too when I see people that don't survive, of course, but people that have to go through a lot more than I did. I do have a little, I almost don't want to talk about it around people that have gone through it. But then again, I do, because I know a few things now that I wish I had known then. It's kind of like little soccer balls or balloons there, and you'll go several times and they inflate them to each time. You know this. Okay. I didn't. And it might have been nice to know. So that's one thing. They inflate them, and they tell you, okay, we're going to inflate them to be larger than what you want. I said, well, I didn't really have that much. I just want to be kind of like what I was before. Well, you don't really get a lot of say, at least in my case. You don't get a lot of say over what you want because I wanted just like I was before. And I came out with a lot more than I had before, which, it's not what I wanted. And it was kind of funny. There were several funny things, like at the first family get together. I had written my grandmother a letter about the whole everything as soon as, and I said, well, they removed it, but they put back in a little more than what they removed. You'll see when I come visit. And so she asked me really loud. She was 98 at the time. What did you mean, honey, when you said they put more in than they removed? I said, well, look, doll, it's, there's a little more going on here than there used to be. And she says in front of the whole family, well, that's because they thought you needed it. And I think you did. So here we are. um, so there's that I wish I'd known because I would try to give input. There were several months where you go in and they do little inflation. And then they want to have at that point the little air balloons or whatever you want to call them, whatever they're called, the placeholders. They want to have them bigger than what you really want. They tell you're going to have to get them inflated bigger than what you want. So they did. And then we went back into a surgery and had the permanent replacements. And that was pretty smooth, except I was a bit frustrated because I didn't feel like they were listening to me at all about what I wanted. I wanted it pretty much like I had before. And what they described, is this what you've heard? The surgeon says, no, we have to look and try several different pairs on you to see what looks most natural. I said, well, don't I get to say what I think looks natural? And he said, no, not really. We have to do it while you're under. So they ordered several pairs of your breast replacements and have those. I think you have a choice between either silicone or some other things. And I just tried to go with the most natural when I was allowed to give input. So I felt like that was pretty strange, but that's apparently the way they needed to do it. While you're unconscious and under, the surgeon and I guess his staff decide which breast you're going to get ultimately, what they think looks right on you. And maybe I should have gotten a female doctor, but they did fine. It's fine. They're not too different from what I had before. And the one tiny little silver lining is these replacements, they don't sag ever. So that was like, okay, well, a tiny silver lining in this whole thing. I was having issues after the surgeries, and when the oncologist prescribed or recommended the oophorectomy, which is the ovary removal. I said, oh, okay. Now, what kind of surgery is that? And she said, they'll just be small incisions. I think it's 3 or 4 small incisions, and no big deal. You don't even have to spend the night in the hospital. I said, well, I'm not planning on having more children. I think I was 49 at that time when she was recommending that. I said, well, so you don't really need your ovaries if you're not planning on having children, right? And she agreed wholeheartedly. So as did the female surgeon. I hope you know that's not true. You do need your ovaries. And I feel like ridiculous that I didn't know that, because read up a little on it and it's right there. But my oncologist didn't know that either. It wasn't in the discussion at all. The ovaries still produce at least estrogen, maybe other hormones too. But when they do the oophorectomy, remove the ovaries, I thought that meant you're not producing any estrogen at all. Well, there are other parts of the body that can produce estrogen. Don't ask me exactly where, but parts in the body can produce some estrogen. Well, that's why they have you take the tamoxifen, is to block that off, because it's believed, I think this is based on a study that's been proven wrong back in 2002 that was really, really overhyped, to supplement your hormones. Instead of blocking that estrogen, you actually get a better success rate of not having the breast cancer return if you do take estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone in the right balance. And you're going to have to work with your doctor if you do this hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, to get it right. But when I started feeling, just the reason I questioned this at all, I just started, had some issues, nerve issues in my hands. I could not even do like that. And I had sore wrist, weakness, couldn't do like normally I can, so this was one major thing where I was like, okay, this would be a normal thing that I could do. No, I don't even give it any thought. Couldn't do that without having to get help to get back up. Couldn't take off a normal top on a jar. And this came on very suddenly after about a year, maybe after the oophorectomy. What else? Oh, as soon as I would fall asleep every night, I would jolt awake. The second I fell asleep, so I wasn't getting any sleep, I'd jolt awake with my arms tingling and kind of painful, but kind of numb. This tingling sensation and up and down my arms and in my legs. And the only way I could get any sleep was to get in this big tub of warm water. And so that was no way to, I thought, this can't get worse because what am I going to do? So went to see a doctor here, different types of doctors, a neurologist. And he said, yeah, you've got neuropathy. You need to, you've got carpal tunnel syndrome. One said you're going to have 2 surgeries, one on each wrist. Oh, and you have irreversible arthritis damage, according to our x-rays. But I don't even have any. And he says, it's irreversible. This won't go away. The pain and the swelling and the weakness is just going to get worse. You need some kind of medicine for that. And went to see a rheumatologist, which they sent me to. And she said, you've got rheumatoid arthritis also, which I didn't know that. I didn't even know about that. So you're going to have to take this very serious, nasty medication for the rest of your life. So now all those symptoms are gone. I just stopped taking the tamoxifen. No one said this could be related to the lack of estrogen and the forced menopause, because I did the surgery. I did not have menopause yet. The surgery forced it. So that was a little more traumatic than natural menopause. I started reading, and I just, by the grace of God, found, I think it was either Mary Claire Haver or Heather Hirsch, both physicians that are very well studied in this area of oncology, gynecology, and the hormone replacement therapy. And I think it was Heather Hirsch that said there's not a woman I would not give hormone replacement therapy to. So I started digging into that. And it turns out I went and found a doctor that's known locally to prescribe that. And he looked at my blood work. He said, yeah, you do need hormone replacement therapy, and all your levels are tanked. He said, you are barely getting through each day. Even your thyroid is tanked. So yeah, you definitely need this and thyroid. You need to tend to the thyroid. I said, okay, when do we start? He said, I can't do it because my board is not up to speed on this stuff, and they won't let me give HRT to a breast cancer, anyone who's ever experienced breast cancer. But he said, I know someone in town that will, and he sent me to her, and she prescribed it, and I feel a ton better, really more. I think I'm me again, finally. I'm realizing that physicians, well, they're almost always, since I was maybe a teenager, realized that physicians are studying their area, and I have a lot of respect for medical, for the science behind it and the areas of specialty, but they usually don't go outside of their area of specialty, and there's a lack of holistic care. So I dreaded having to take time away from my art practice and my family and friends to try to become an expert on this. But it was time that I had to, I mean, we all need to advocate and study for our own health, but we hopefully won't have to make it a second job or take up all of our time. So, but we have to do enough to figure out what really is going on. It's so funny though. How can you advocate? I thought I was advocating. I knew to question radiation and chemotherapy. I didn't know to question the oophorectomy. I thought, I thought I knew, so I didn't even know to ask questions or to advocate in that area. I do feel like I'm getting my life back. I have more of the inspiration and energy to do the paintings at the pace at which I used to, and to just get all the things done, working with website designers and publishers, and getting the with my art practice, it's all about getting the art out there. And so, yes, I'm excited now. I'm just very, very excited to, to be alive and to have my energy back. And I can't imagine if I hadn't started reading about the HRT. I would love to go back in time and not have the oophorectomy. That's not possible. I would. I feel some sense of responsibility to have a conversation with the oncologist and the surgeon to question your any anything that's prescribed. Just question and study it. If I had jumped into the having 2 surgeries for carpal tunnel and having gotten on the RA medicine, which rheumatoid arthritis is something that can show up in your blood. In my case, it did not, but the rheumatologist still insisted I had another type of RA that doesn't. Uh, I can't imagine that I had RA. I was showing these symptoms that they just couldn't put it in their box. Like my GP said, if you go to a muffler shop, they're going to sell you a muffler. So be careful about going to see all the specialists. And when they do sell you the muffler, perseverance is the word that comes to mind, and self-love and forgiveness. Let's not beat ourselves up for not reading because we didn't know to read about a certain subject. And if we didn't advocate the best way for ourselves, just keep moving. And there's usually something that can make it better. In my case, finding the HRT wasn't, from what I'm reading, that's so great for so many people. So is that the message you're looking for? I don't know. Really focus on the positive, focus on the light and bright, because that just crowds the dark out, so it won't have room. The doubts and the dark and the negativity or regret can be crowded out if you try to keep focusing on the light and the positive and the good around us. I think that going through this definitely made me focus on just gratitude and how thankful I am for, and that's been a real blessing. And I also feel this might sound woo-woo, but I like to think, it's not that I like to think, I do feel that the cancer tumors that were removed had a very dense concentration of so much energy that it's such a dense negative. I see it as a metaphor for something that was removed, and I think that should free up lots more room for this positivity that I intend to manifest. So I hope that's true for others that have to have something cut out of them.